More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never came.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
Was Molly Qerim's exit from ESPN really just a graceful move? Or are we staring at a scheme so twisted it could rattle even the most seasoned ESPN insider? That's the question lighting up timelines, turning every sports fan into a detective and pushing the spotlight onto a network already drowning in whispers of chaos.
Oftentimes, when you have someone abruptly quit a job, they're not leaving on the best terms. Normally, it's polite to give your employer some kind of notice.
This wasn't your everyday TV shuffle or the quiet ending of a contract. No way. This was a storm of shady allegations, brewing vendettas, and backstabbing worthy of a late-night thriller. And the fallout hasn't just rocked ESPN's hallways, it's exposed cracks that hint at a network-wide crisis nobody wants to own up to. For over 10 years, Molly Qerim sat steady at the First Take desk, side by side with Stephen A. Smith, balancing his fiery rants, cooling down on-air meltdowns, and making sure the egos never went nuclear. To the outside world, it looked flawless, almost like the perfect recipe for live sports debate.
She was quitting right now. Both ESPN and Molly Qerim, they are trying to polish the... They're trying to make this look like an amicable divorce. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe they couldn't come to an agreement and they agreed to amicably part ways. I'm more interested in...
But then, just like that, Molly disappeared from the lineup one morning, and boom, the rumor mill went into overdrive. Sure, she posted the polished goodbye on Instagram, thanking brilliant, passionate, and entertaining voices in sports and pouring gratitude on loyal fans. But behind the smiles and elegant words, people can't shake the feeling that this exit hides a much darker story waiting to blow wide open. But anyone who's been around this game longer than 5 minutes knows, public statements are where the real dirt gets buried. If you blinked, you might have missed how fast ESPN slapped a glossy PR bandage over the wound.
Well, let's remember, wasn't it just last week Stephen A. was on air bragging about the people he stood up for to get paid and how many, Cam, I did it for Shannon Sharp and I did it for this person and that person. And when I look at the abrupt, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is like, maybe there's pointing the finger at Stephen A.
Out came the flowery tributes, the safe little thank yous, the polished nostalgia reel, but not a single whisper about the storm brewing just off camera. And what a storm it was. In a twist straight out of a messy soap opera, the first bombshell didn't come from ESPN, and it didn't even come from Molly herself. It came from a woman claiming to be Stephen A. Smith's ex-girlfriend. This so-called whistleblower didn't pull punches. She came in swinging like a wrecking ball, torching the studio's reputation in one breath. She claimed Molly Qerim was the mastermind behind a cold-blooded campaign to sabotage Stephen A., leaking contract secrets, feeding dirt to his rivals, and even worse, allegedly planting a harassment story designed to nuke his entire career. The alleged motive? A toxic cocktail of revenge, power grabs, and what the accuser painted as raw envy over Stephen A.'s unstoppable rise. Ballooning contract. Molly wants Stephen A.'s money when she doesn't have Stephen A.'s talent, the alleged rant went, dripping with venom. That jab made it clear this was way bigger than just who got to host. It was about who owned the spotlight and who was being shoved into the shadows. Even if you take those words with a mountain of salt, you can't deny the vibe inside ESPN was begging for a blow-up. For months, sharp-eyed viewers and even staffers behind the scenes noticed the air shifting. This wasn't just playful on-air sparring anymore. It was raw, personal, and sometimes straight up awkward to watch.
I think we'll start with Molly Qerim. She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving immediately, which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more serious. She's off the show.
Clips started flooding socials, showing Molly and Stephen A. butting heads live, arguing over guest picks, dropping slick little salary jabs, and throwing shade about who really ran the show. Molly even joked about not being able to use the bathroom without Stephen A. knowing, while Stephen fired back with half jokes that felt a little too real. And in a business where gossip spreads faster than press releases, that visible tension became gasoline for 1,000 conspiracy theories, and fans couldn't get enough. But the real boiling point, insiders say, came just weeks before Molly's dramatic walk-off. Multiple sources point to a behind-the-scenes explosion at ESPN's Connecticut headquarters, a clash so wild that security had to step in. Depending on who you trust, the blow-up was the perfect storm of years of pent-up resentment finally snapping loose. Stephen A. allegedly accused Molly of straight-up betrayal, while Molly fired back, claiming she was being sabotaged. All this went down in a room full of frazzled producers scrambling to keep the details off Slack and out of sight from the higher-ups. And make no mistake, this wasn't some heated spat that ends with a half smile and a "see you Monday." This was scorched earth.
Whether she goes to FS1 or launches her own show on YouTube, I wish Molly Qerim nothing but the best. I don't want to see her fail, but at the same time, I don't see a path to success. It is hard to build an audience by yourself. It's hard to build and sustain an audience when it's just you.
The kind of verbal war that makes it crystal clear. There's no fixing it, only damage control left to spin. And sure enough, the fallout landed squarely on ESPN's doorstep. Top brass moved fast, rolling out their polished, controversy-free statements, painting Molly's exit as nothing more than personal growth. A calm choice to turn the page. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, dropped his version of corporate poetry, calling Molly an integral part of ESPN since 2006 and swearing the network even tried to place her in other roles. He called it just business. But insiders know when someone swears no shoe is gonna drop, you better brace yourself for a whole boot to the face, and the timing, way too perfect. As Molly's farewell was trending, breaking news hit that Malika Andrews had just inked a massive new contract, sending fans into a full-on frenzy. Coincidence, or a calculated swap? One powerful female anchor out, another in, while the real drama stayed hidden behind ESPN's curtains. Fans couldn't help but ask the question. And then came Stephen A., carefully playing his hand on air. To say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement, he admitted, mourning Molly's exit. But just as quickly, he slammed the door on any juicy details. The details, quite frankly, are none of your business, he told viewers. And then doubled down, it's not as if I know all the details. That's like putting a "do not enter" sign on a room right after everyone hears glass shatter. You already know people were gonna start speculating like crazy. And the real kicker, Stephen A. dropped the most cryptic line of all. That story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I gonna share it? No, boom.
A lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, she made a decision.
That one statement guaranteed maximum speculation. Translation: whatever went down, it wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't ready for daylight. While all this chaos unfolded, the rumor mill went into overdrive. Social media sleuths started digging up every awkward on-air exchange, every shady remark, every moment where Molly and Stephen A. looked like they'd rather be anywhere else than sitting side by side. Critics zeroed in on one live segment where Stephen A. cracked a joke about Molly's eating habits during commercial breaks. To some, it was just a throwaway line, but others saw it as a not-so-subtle jab that revealed deeper cracks in their partnership. The backlash was instant, with fans calling the remark out as inappropriate, and a few even suggesting Stephen A. was holding on to an old grudge. Suddenly, every smile, every sigh, every side-eye on First Take was being dissected like evidence in a true crime doc. Meanwhile, the receipts from Stephen A.'s alleged ex were gaining traction. Her claims painted Molly as someone not only scheming to create scandals, but also teaming up with certain ESPN managers who allegedly had their own issues with Stephen A.'s skyrocketing success. What emerged was a toxic cocktail of ego, jealousy, and pure workplace backstabbing, and fans couldn't look away. This was the kind of drama you'll never see in an ESPN annual report, but it'll always find its way into the tabloids. Even wilder was the claim that Molly's contract demands had ballooned way out of control, allegedly sparking a behind-the-scenes war over who really deserved to call the shots and rake in the biggest checks.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it was fun. It ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation. Well, that was about the money. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for cluing it. It's always about the money, though. It's like in boxing. Why didn't this fight happen? Easy. There wasn't enough.
And if you believe the conspiracy crowd, ESPN wasn't focused on peace at all. They were focused on protecting their brand, with ratings slipping and rival networks circling like sharks. Insiders claim the suits cared more about saving face than saving friendships. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. What would push a network staple like Molly to risk everything, her reputation, her alliances, even her health, on a dangerous campaign of sabotage, if that's really what happened? Was it about taking Stephen A. out of the picture? Was it about chasing his paycheck? Or was it about refusing to be shoved aside as ESPN's next big star and next big contract rolled in? The truth is murky, blurred by personal bias and self-preservation. But one thing is clear, the stakes were sky high. And then came the most sensitive twist. Molly was already fighting a private illness, which made her an unlikely villain in this saga. But when that detail popped up in the alleged ex's rants, the internet went wild. Was it a sympathy card, or a quiet setup for Molly to slip out the side door before the whole powder keg blew? Now we're staring straight at the fallout. A studio stripped of its steady anchor, a bench of hungry candidates waiting for their shot, and a network desperate to convince the world this was all business as usual. But nobody's buying it. Because as the smoke still lingers, the final puzzle pieces remain missing. Stephen A. keeps dropping those cryptic hints, just enough to keep fans guessing, but never enough to shut the case. Why won't he spill? Is he shielding himself, protecting Molly, or guarding something or someone far more powerful? As the leaks, side eyes, and shady little digs continue stacking up, one thing's clear, this saga isn't cooling down. It's only getting hotter. And here's the twist. Stephen A., a man who built his brand on never holding back, suddenly turned into a master of silence. The second Molly's exit went public, his words felt less like a tribute and more like velvet rope stretched across a crime scene.
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up. Mm-hmm. And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
The details, quite frankly, are none of your business. It's not as if I know all the details. Please, when has Stephen A. ever held back unless the truth was radioactive? His sudden tight lips and that convenient selective memory say more than any tell-all ever could. So what's he really protecting? Is he scared of dragging himself into the mess? Or is he sitting on secrets explosive enough to take down careers all the way up to ESPN's C-suite? Fans are left playing detective in the dark, chasing his cryptic breadcrumbs like storm chasers waiting for a flash of light behind blackout curtains. Meanwhile, Molly packs her bags and drives off with ESPN in the rear view, chaos sliding right into her empty seat. The network, once thriving on bold personalities and high-stakes debates, suddenly finds itself scrambling in damage control mode, and right on cue, Malika Andrews is promoted at lightning speed, landing a contract extension so sweet it feels less like recognition and more like a reward for being in the right place at the right time. The move had fans buzzing, and for good reason. Was this all a coincidence? Or was it a carefully orchestrated clean swap? Molly pushed out the side door so Malika could sweep in and claim the spotlight. The timing feels way too neat to ignore. Or was Molly just another pawn sacrificed in a bigger, messier chess match playing out behind ESPN's glass walls?
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host. Well, when Stephen A. is sitting there making 20, well, maybe now she wants to make 10.
One veteran producer who survived more shakeups than a California fault line claimed power struggles have basically become the real sport inside the network and nobody's safe. Not even the stars sitting in the anchor chair. And when you follow the money, the picture gets sharper. insiders point straight to Stephen A. Smith, whose paycheck now rivals NFL head coaches, and whose influence has reportedly grown so massive it even overshadows some of ESPN's old guard execs. Every time the network cuts him another multi-million-dollar check, the tension in the studio spikes like a shot clock buzzer. It's no secret that longtime anchors and producers have started bristling at his power grab. And now, with Malika Andrews racing up the ladder toward her own empire, Molly's exit feels less like a choice and more like a casualty of an all-out turf war. Sure, the suits can spin it as business as usual, but the timing is just too sharp, too calculated, too perfect. To many watching from the outside, it doesn't look like coincidence. It looks engineered. It looked like a careful purge, anyone not fully aligned with ESPN's new power structure quietly being shown the door. And just when it seemed the plot couldn't twist any further, whispers exploded about Molly's alleged blackmail folder. That's right, more than one insider swears Molly kept a hidden digital arsenal packed with sensitive emails, private recordings, and years of off-the-record gossip about execs and on-air stars. If those rumors are even half true, that stash would be the nuclear button of sports media. Leverage powerful enough to buy a golden parachute, or at the very least, guarantee Molly a soft landing outside of Bristol. Some believe the very existence of that folder is why ESPN leadership rushed her exit and played the rollout with such kid gloves, making sure the story leaked in the most careful way possible. So what kind of secrets could Molly have tucked away? One former production assistant claims she saw emails exposing contract disputes and unsent draft complaints aimed at colleagues. Another source swears Molly had voice memos locked down, documenting uncomfortable moments between anchors and management. The exact contents of that digital vault remain a mystery, but the fear it sparks is very real. ESPN's legal squad has gone full Fort Knox, but the mere rumor of Molly's so-called folder is enough to keep every exec glancing nervously over their shoulder. It feels ripped straight from a boardroom thriller. What if one perfectly timed leak sends the whole house of cards crashing down? Meanwhile, the public is split. Some loyal fans see Molly as a survivor, a woman fighting back against a hostile workplace. Others paint her as a master manipulator who finally gambled too big and lost. The truth? It might be a messy mix of both.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
Because in today's world, where influence is measured in hashtags and seven-figure contracts, does playing fair even exist anymore? Even as Molly's polished farewell radiated gratitude, I'm so grateful for what this journey has given me. Lifelong friendships, unforgettable memories, and the chance to be part of something truly special. The sound of doors slamming shut behind her couldn't be ignored. Her words were hopeful, but the vibes screamed unfinished business, and the ripple effects stretched far beyond one anchor's exit. With Molly gone, ESPN stands at a dangerous crossroads. The empire that once looked untouchable now finds itself riddled with whispers of backstabbing, ambition, and unchecked power. And fans are left wondering, what scandal will explode next? Insiders whisper that the very culture which made ESPN a powerhouse is now devouring itself from the inside out. Staffers are asking, who's next to pursue other opportunities? Which scandal will get quietly buried before it hits the front page? Execs keep swearing no shoe is about to drop, but behind the scenes, every ex-host, producer, and even interns with old grudges are holding their breath, waiting for the next bombshell to land. And Stephen A., his cryptic silence is gasoline on the fire. He's kept just enough distance to let the rumor mill spiral out of control, never denying, never confirming, but always leaving the door open. In this business, everyone's got skeletons, and his refusal to spill makes fans wonder, will he skate through untouched, or are we about to see him dragged under the harshest spotlight of his career? Already, talk shows and podcasts are circling like vultures, dissecting every side eye, every smirk, every on-air quip that could point to the next scandal. ESPN has always thrived on debate, but nobody's ready for the war brewing behind closed doors. And the biggest question of all, what happens if Molly's rumored blackmail folder ever leaks? Are we talking blown up contracts, anchors staging walkouts, or top execs suddenly stepping down for personal reasons? If that vault cracks open, ESPN's empire might not just wobble, it could collapse. And as for Malika, how safe is any throne at ESPN when the ground is shaking nonstop beneath it? Sure, the networks dodged scandals before, but this one feels different, nastier, more personal, and radioactive enough to scorch even the biggest names if even half the whispers are true. Because let's be real, ESPN's juiciest drama isn't on the debate stage anymore, it's in the boardroom. And one thing is certain, the fallout from Molly Qerim's shocking exit is only just beginning. In Bristol, every locked door suddenly looks like a possible escape route for the next unlucky staffer. So what's coming next? Will new secrets explode across the timeline? Is Stephen A. about to face the hardest reckoning of his career? And just how many skeletons are buried under the First Take set? Drop your thoughts below. What do you think really went down, and whose side are you on as this saga spirals out of control? Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And I'll see you on the next one, because in this wild world of sports media, nothing stays hidden forever.